Hey guys, this is What If Ben 10 was in Invincible Season 1 Part 3. And to put it frank, Mark's about to get his cheeks clapped, bro. Expeditiously, no diddy. But let's just dive right into this fanfiction. Let me get comfortable first. Let me get comfortable first, guys. It's been like 4 months since Part 2. Come on now. I need to cook. Come on now. So let's dive right into this fanfiction. What if Benson was invincible? Part 2. Last time I left off, Part 3. Last time I left off was, I think, episode 2 of Invincible Season 1. And hopefully, guys, I'll be able to get through Season 2 of this What If before Season 3 of Invincible drops. But let's dive right into this fanfiction. So, last time I left off, Mark and Ben would have been doing their own thing. Ben would have had a little bit of a conversation with his grandpa about something going on, and him noticing more heroes and more plumbers are going missing around the universe, not around the universe, but mainly around the Earth area of the solar system, around the Milky Way galaxy. But him finding out more and more, and him even being hinted towards that something else was going on by his grandpa. We see that Mark's whole story goes semi the same. He gets encouraged to do a little bit more good by Ben after the whole situation with the aliens attacking and stuff. But overall, altogether, it's pretty simple. Nothing really changes too much for the story to really practically affect everything. But it is more signs pointing to somebody killing heroes a lot more earlier into the future because of the Plumbers Academy having a tight leash or pretty much tight contact with every plumber that's around. That is at least, a good plumber. So we get switched to, the funeral of the Guardians of the Globe, with Nolan speaking for the Guardians, saying they never joined the Guardians, but he always knew they were good people and that they were an amazing hero team. Him just, yapping on, and we all know. I'm not going to spoil it because it's a what if. But, yeah, so basically simple, we all know Mark is not talking, but he's listening to all this, and everybody in the world is absolutely in disarray of everything that's going on for the Guardians of the Globe because so many people were saved by them and were helped by them, as everybody's kind of just shook. We see that Grandpa Max is also there as well, him being one of the veteran Golden Day heroes, as people are just watching him and seeing that he must be the most shooketh out of this whole group since he was a part of the Guardians himself. He just was off-world during the time they were killed. So what happened is, no one would have said great things about them. Basically, just, basically dick riding. I mean, like, straight up meat riding. I mean, straight up crazy. But what happened is after that, Marcus flies off. After that, the actual burying of the heroes begins, and the funeral ends off. Everybody gets buried. Mark's father, Nolan, says a few more words as the funeral is over. Everybody is in mourning, especially Red Rush's wife, as she's in pure disarray and shock, as she is just so disgusted, not disgusted, but so defeated she couldn't even see her husband's face. He was so destroyed. As what would happen is Mark would have been kind of sad by this. Ben would have also been here with his his grandpa, as he would have been sitting next to Ben, or Mark, Jesus, sorry guys, I'm out of my mojo, next to Mark, saying that this is just horrible. After that, we get switched to the Invincible title screen as we get switched to the rest of the whole entire, story going on. Mark sees everybody walk away. Ben also walks away as well, but we see, Dark Blood show up and start pressing the absolute hell out of Nolan, bro. He starts pressing this man's for what's going on. Like, bro, you see for real? He's pressing him, and he has his eyes set on this man's cheeks. But he most likely just starts getting on him, saying that you're the only person that was there that was strong enough to survive, but also strong enough to kill all of them too. As Dark Blood is kind of like getting pressed and kind of pressing Nolan, as pretty much we see Grandpa is watching this from afar. Max, as I'm just gonna say Grandpa Max or Max, as you guys will know. So we see Max watches this from afar as he looks closer, and Max is actually old friends with Dark Blood since Max used to be one of the Golden Day heroes and plumbers of this world. Him being one of the Golden Day heroes as well, being a part of the first couple hero teams in the world, or in America actually, being the Golden Age of heroes. So we see that he kind of just looks closer and gives a nightly, how you see somebody in the hallways or see somebody at your school outside of public and you see them and you ain't tight with them, but you know them, and you nod your head, like, you know what I'm talking about. But after that, we see that the robot gets talked about a opening in the Guardians of the Globe by was it Cecil. We get switched to Mark, Debbie, and Nolan coming back from the funeral, as Nolan's kind of just not showing real sadness, but everybody's kind of shocked by this. Honored the Follow Guardians was on the news, as Nolan changes it, but everything on the news, everything on the TV is just about the Guardians' death. Mark is just kind of confused and mad about everything, and how he literally just, and blah blah blah, which is pretty much just meaningless stuff. But Nolan gets on Mark for yelling at his mom and being mad about this, saying it's not really your problem, blah blah blah, just talking and talking and talking. They argue a little bit, but Mark tries to go to his room, but Nolan stops him and tries to tell him something. But Mark just goes away, as Nolan just forgets this and forgives him and saying that it's okay, son. As they walk away, and that whole conversation ends pretty quickly. So after that, nothing in the story really happens much of importance during this whole talk between Debbie and Nolan, as we get switched to Ben. As Ben is basically across the street, inside the house where Cecil and his men were originally supposed to be looking and spying over, Nolan's house. They would have been actually across the street by the left side, basically being like, let's say, next door neighbors to Ben. Actually, never mind. What was I talking about? Part 1, I said Ben lived in the same neighborhood as Mark. He didn't live exactly across from each other. I'm sorry. I'm tripping. But we can switch to Ben's house, as Ben is just chilling, doing his whole thing, just doing what he wants to do. As Ben gets a call from his grandpa, saying that something's going down and that Kevin needs their help somewhere. As Ben gets happy, saying that it's supposed to be a mission and that he can actually do something. And we get switched to Ben getting ready and putting on his, jacket and stuff, and getting the animatrix ready, as he jumps out of his window, transforming into Ghost Freak. And he transforms into Ghost Freak, and he flies around the neighborhood, eventually coming to Mark's window, trying to get him to help him out doing this mission with everybody. But basically what happened is Mark just tries to tell him that he wants to do something with his girlfriend, and that maybe he can handle it on himself, as Ben just scoffs off, but they keep on talking. So we get switched to the Teen Titan or Teen Team's lair, as we see that, a little bit of hanky-panky, a little bit of cheeks getting clapped, no diddy, by Rex and Duplicate. They go crazy. Go crazy. I'm about to turn it all up. Go crazy. But yeah, what happened is Rex, Duplicate, everybody would have, they would have gone devious. And Duplicate was using multiple of herself to give Rex a good time. That's crazy work. That's devious work, bro. That's devious work. So what happened is, let's just say Adam Eve would be disgusted and just walk away saying, "You're a jerk, Rex," as she would have been heartbroken. Rex being kind of discouraged, but him trying to get still a little bit more hanky-panky from the triplets, from the clones. But we get switched to the tryouts for the Guardians of the Globe. Now what would happen is, during this time, Ben would actually have a mission going on, him showing up to the Guardians of the Globe, or some sort of hero site. As he's getting kind of confused, he de-transforms on the way there, as Mark and pretty much Ben show up, as we see that, what would happen is Kevin would have looked at both of them, saying that it wasn't no real mission, they're just going to do tryouts, as he wants to see if Ben and Mark could get on the Guardians of the Globe. Ben is actually kind of resilient because he likes working on his own. He works with the plumbers occasionally, but he likes working with his own little team alongside Gwen and Kevin. They're his top tier friends. Of course, also a new add-on to the team or the gang being Invincible, or Mark. Mark isn't really too keen on the idea of joining the Guardians of the Globe, him trying to figure out what hero he is, as we would see that, Ben is kind of resilient, saying that maybe he could join, but he doesn't really know if he really wants that responsibility to be part of the biggest superhero team in the world. But we actually just see straight up Mark decline the whole offer of being a part of the Guardians of the Globe when Robot approaches him. We see that Mark basically isn't really keen on the idea of this, as he just straight up tells him that he's not really trying to become a part of the team. He's just trying to do his own thing. And you see that Ben's also directed or not, well, pretty much pressed by Robot, saying that do you want to join or not? As Ben is kind of resilient, but we see that Kevin actually doesn't want to join either, as he's just here to give Ben opportunity. As Kevin's one of Robot's closest friends, not closest friends, but he knew Robot a few years back after he would have came to Earth and did a little bit of a mission tracking down a rogue, what was it? I can't remember what the race, extra Nori? I don't remember, but a rogue ghost freak species on Earth, as he would have tracked it down, taken it out, Ghostbuster style, alongside a Robot, as Robot and Kevin would have been semi-friends. Kevin would have not known about Robot's whole thing going on, but Robot knew for a fact maybe somehow Kevin could have helped him, but he didn't want to risk their relationship and have him spill the beans about, who he really is and how he really works. But what happened is we can see a bunch of, let's just say, slot filler type heroes step in to try to, I guess you could say, be a part of the new League of Heroes, basically the Guardians of the Globe. We see Adam Eve go up against some sort of big dude with super strength, as she straight up just socks this man left and right. She drops this man like an omelet, foldable, bro. Absolutely gives him the 2-piece combo, extra biscuit, no drink, no flavor, as he's dropped. As Rex is just looking down, as Mark says, well, she looks mad. You know anything about that? You know anything about that, Rex? As Rex says, I don't know. How would I know? As Ben just scoffs, as he kind of has the idea of it. Since back in the past, we get switch to a little bit of a flashback of Ben and Rex actually knowing each other, being somewhat of friends, as he would have realized that Rex was kind of let's just say, a F-boy. But him not really trying to bring that up because he really thought he liked or he loved Eve. But let's just say when Ben finds out, a shit pops off. But after that, we can switch to the rest of the pretty much members going on for tryouts. And everybody tries out, and we can switch to Shrink Ray. As we see that Ben looks at Shrink Ray and kind of smirks a little bit, as Mark says, what is that about? As Ben just says, nothing at all. As we get switched to some sort of monkey guy in freaking tennis shoes with no brain cell trying to take down Shrink Ray. But Shrink Ray absolutely drops this man, climbs in his ear, and basically makes him puke up and straight up discombobulate. Bro is discombobulating. Bro is boxed up. On goodness. But what happened is basically he's dropped. X-Ray wins. And Ben's kind of, impressed. But we see that some sort of electric Live Wire girl or Electro girl is trying to take on a former hero of the Guardians of the Globe. What was it? I think Black Samson. Black Samson takes her out, but also shows a little bit of compassion, helping her back up after he knocks her down, as he shows heroism. But we get switched to the rest of the team, basically getting looked at for basically all their stats and everything, and them all getting drafted by Robot. And so what happened is we would see Rex start to press this little girl that got drafted. Him saying, this little girl, bro, are you for real right now? She's a girl. She's a little child. For real right now, man? As Robot just says, shut up, Rex. As Rex just started going on and on and on. As Ben says, shut up, Rex, as he tries to whisper in his ear. Rex, knowing that Ben is his friend, but him still going on. As we would see that, Monster Girl would have started to press Rex. I mean, started to box this man up. But let's just say Rex would have tried to press back, and he would have got dropped. As we all know what his face looked like. I mean, goddamn. Bro was dropped. As we would see that pretty much Monster Girl started wailing on him. Started wailing on this dude. I mean, goddamn, let him breathe. Let him breathe. Let him get up. Let him get up. But what happened is Monster Girl would have ate all his attacks and would have straight up boxed this man up. Now, what happened is Monster Girl would have started to box him up. Eve just watching this and kind of being satisfied, but Mark being kind of confused. As you see that, actually, instead of Mark jumping in and stopping Monster Girl, we see that Ben jumps in. As Ben flies down there in Heat Blast form, basically telling Monster Girl to stop. As Monster Girl says, get out of my way, small pie. As he tries to hit him or push him back, as pretty much Ben pretty much mimics the same move Mark did as he jumps back off the wall he was thrown into and throwing a huge tsunami of a fire wave towards Monster Girl, hitting her down to the ground. Monster Girl gets detransformed as she gets up and says, "I'm sorry," as she apologizes to Mark. Not Mark, but Rex. As Rex gets helped up by Ben as they walk away, as pretty much we get switched to Invincible and the rest of the team looking around, everything, as everybody kind of just sees everything go down with, Rex and everybody getting dropped like an omelet, and pretty much Rex getting folded like a Crunchable meal. But what would happen? Everybody would realize what was going on, as pretty much Eve kind of refuses to be a part of the team, as she just leaves, her saying that she doesn't want to be a part of the Guardians anymore, or a hero team at all. As she flies off and Mark follows her, trying to figure out what's going on, as Ben just lets Mark do what he wants to do. As you see that Mark is walking away, and Ben is walking away, as pretty much, Robot talks to Ben, saying that his powers can be very versatile and very worth the cause of being a part of the Guardians of the Globe, and he could be a really good help to us. Okay, so I forgot to introduce this. Alan Albert, the half Pyro Knight, the half Heat Blast kid from part 1. He was a part of the tryouts and he got on the Guardians of the Globe. So I'm going to talk more about him in part 3. Sorry, I forgot about him in the script. Part 4, I mean. But what would happen is Ben would just say, "I don't really be a part of a hero team. It's too much responsibility for me right now. And honestly, I'm already a part of another team as it is." As Robot says, "What team?" As Ben says, "That's classified." As pretty much Robot just says that, "Well, can you at least join us for a few meetings? Be a part of the team for a little bit, honorary member?" As like him saying like something like, how like Omni-Man did. As we would see that, well, Ben would have accepted, saying, "Why not?" As what would happen is we would get switched to Ben and the rest of the team just talking and talking and talking, as Ben just sees everything go down. As Ben just watching everybody talk about the training schedules and everything like that, as Monster Girl explains her whole scheduling and how she can't transform too much or else she'll age too fast. As Black Samson kind of looks at Robot, saying that you need to put your team ahead of yourself. Blah, blah, just talking. They just start pressing Robot for his training schedule and everything like that. As Ben is in the background, as Rex gets on him saying that, "Why is this guy here? He didn't even try out." As Ben says, "Well, I saved you." As pretty much Rex just smiles, saying, "Yeah, I know he can be part of this team, but it doesn't really matter." As not Mark, but Ben and Rex kind of have a back and forth smirky type of cocky, teasing on each other relationship. Them basically just having kind of a Spider-Man type, Venom type personality that torture each other. Like they have a underlying hate for each other, but they love each other enough to take a hit or a bullet for each other. Basically like friends, like locked in friends, but not as locked in as Ben is with Kevin. But what would happen is we would see that Omni-Man would have looked over the team saying pure pathetic, but he would have looked closely at Ben, smirking, saying maybe not, as he would have realized that Ben had a potential to be stronger than him, but him not trying to listen to that too much. Saying that if the worst comes, he could just rip the Omnitrix clean off Ben's wrist, or just rip his arm off and not kill Ben, as he didn't want to just kill him since he knew Ben was one of Mark's closest friends, and he knew Ben as a child. But what would happen is we could switch to Mark and William talking as Amber's coming over, as William basically tells him to get rid of all the tissues and the toys and all that other stuff. William would have dipped out, as we see that Mark and Debbie would have been talking and talking and talking. And Mark and Amber would have been talking and talking. Now, Mark would have gotten a call about some superhero stuff, as Cecil would have talked to him that he needed his help. But basically, Mark's saying that I have a little bit of a situation going on, and can't you just talk to Ben? As Cecil says, yeah, but Ben's busy. As Mark would have said, just try him again. You know what? I'll call him. As Cecil says, wait, no. As Ben is called, but Mark calls Ben, and Ben picks up, saying that he's kind of busy right now, as Ben's already fighting the rogue hero, but the rogue supervillain, but I just think he's a lot more dangerous than they thought he was in this universe. As Mark's called for backup and basically told that you never will work for me, but you never will if you don't become a hero and you don't step up to your responsibilities. You want to become a superhero or what? as Mark is kind of confused, but he eventually decides to do it. As he eventually leaves Amber there, so what happened after that, we can see that Mark flies off, saying he had to go somewhere. As he flies off, and he's met up with Adam Eve. As Ben's already there en route, as he's in his heat blast transformation once again. As he starts throwing lightning, firebolt after firebolt, trying to take down this giant, whatever, dark seismic type dude. As he starts to throw more and more rocks towards Ben and basically shatter the floor underneath him, as Ben starts to fly around and take a rock and start flying on top of it like Heat Blast does in the original series, as he starts to fly around and basically throw fireballs after fireballs at Dark Seismic. As Dark Seismic starts to dodge more and more out of the way, and eventually throwing a huge burst of shockwaves towards Ben, as Ben's thrown off his rocker, falling down to the ground, as he eventually is saved last minute by Mark grabbing him on the back and flying him away at a safe distance, then basically, intervening on the fight and basically trying to take him down. Dark Seismic would have started to try to destroy Mount Rushmore, as Ben would have been telling them to stop him and save all the civilians, as he will stop the rock slides and try to keep them in bay. As he starts using his fire at full capacity, melting the rock and trying to mold it back together by pushing up the face of Abraham Lincoln back on the face of, George Washington, not George Washington, forget the Mount Rushmore, as he basically melts it back together and tries to get it back in place, as it works pretty good, as it's kind of stuck together now. After that, we can switch to Mark basically looking down at Dark Seismic, as Mark and Ben jump in and start straight up trying to jump him. But what happened is Adam Eve would also jumped as well, as they would have told Adam Eve to try to take down and save the civilians as fast as possible. But that would happen as Eve would start to fly around trying to save everybody from getting, pretty much murked. After that, we see that Mark and Ben start to try to jump him as they start to take him down more and more and more. Eventually, after all the civilians would have been saved by, Eve would have jumped in as well, trying to chase down Dark Seismic. Dark Seismic would have started to fly around, and eventually getting closer and closer away from them, or farther and farther away from them. And eventually, Ben would have transformed into Accelerate, speeding up behind Dark Seismic and starting to punch him back to back to back. Eventually, Dark Seismic would have pretty much rumbled the floor enough for Accelerate to jump or fall off his rocker, him pretty much barreling in towards Mark. As Mark falls into a couple of pieces of rock, as Dark Seismic eventually uses his powers to blast a rock away, anime style, as that rock has been thrown by Adam Eve using her powers. But what happened is Dark Seismic started to go Super Saiyan on these dudes and started to literally shatter the floor back to back to back, making huge, ginormous, earthly attacks on top of people. More civilians would have been in danger, as Ben would have jumped in, transforming into Diamond Head, making contracts to help these people slide down between the rocks being cut away, as he would have tried to save these people as fast as possible. Him basically using his diamond constructs to make a safety wall on the other side of the way, as eventually we see that Mark would have started to use his powers like a drill, saving another group of civilians that were trying to get saved by Eve. After he would have saved them, this family of three, Dark Seismic would have said, "Hell nah, boy, you ain't getting out of this one," as he would have started to try to snipe this fool. But Adam Eve would have jumped in, also Ben as well, trying to jump him. As we would see that Dark Seismic's powers or gloves would start to freak out and be on the fritz, as he would start to pretty much blast himself away or around the place. Him falling down to his death, as we would see that Ben would have tried to jump after him, transforming into X-Ray or Jet Ray, as he would start to fly faster and faster and faster, trying to find him, trying to grab him before he hits the ground, as he eventually starts to blast Ben away using his pretty much messed up gloves or wrist things, as he would have said, "F all y'all, I ain't going out like this, I ain't going in jail." As Mark would have tried to save him after Ben would have gotten blasted off, as Mark would have fly after him, but him getting blasted off as well, as Dark Seismic would have gotten boxed up. After that, we would see that a whole volcanic eruption would have happened, as Eve basically is grabbed and saved by Mark, as also Ben as well, as Ben and them fly out of there, being saved by Eve's force field by the huge eruptive lava. The lava fills up all the cracks and basically makes a huge landmark, but the day is saved, I guess. But basically, Mark flies off to try to get back to his girlfriend as Ben and Eve are left there. As we see that Eve kind of being, sad by Mark leaving, but we will see that Ben basically would have just told Eve that it's okay. And now Mark just has a lot on his mind right now. As he flies off, as he goes and tries to meet up with Kevin after some sort of situation that's going on before he got there. After that, we get switched to, Nolan and Mark having a little bit of a talk, and the same thing happens as they just talk about everything. Now, Amber is kind of, mad at this, but pretty much Mark tries to consult her, saying that he had to do something, but they eventually consult each other, and it happens pretty normally. We get switched to some sort of kaiju that was beating on pretty much Omni-Man that actually was able to give him a little bit of a problem as, let's just say, Cecil hires one of his men to basically grab him or grab this kaiju and put him under their lock so they can basically, have him as a backup plan for Omni-Man when the time comes. Now, what happened, you see that Debbie would have been given a piece of the kaiju as to cook, I guess, as Nolan would have started to talk to Debbie as they would have had a little bit of a conversation and showing their love for each other. They get switched to Eve packing up all her stuff for the team and leaving, being kind of pissed off. But her flying up on the surface, hearing some sort of explosions, as we would see that, Rex would try to, console her and try to apologize for what he did, as he's really sorry for it. But Eve doesn't want to hear it, as she's just been hurt by him, as she flies away. She flies off and she tries to see Mark and consult with him, but her seeing that Mark is already, booed up, as she's kind of sad, as she flies off. As you see that Ben is in the neighborhood, as she tries to meet up with Ben before she says, good job, flyboy, as she flies off to try to meet up with Ben. But Ben isn't home. As we get switched to Ben, as Ben's somewhere completely different. As Ben is off-world fighting some sort of giant kaiju on some sort of planet filled with people that are kind of like Upchuck, as his Upchuck race, as he basically just starts fighting these guys back to back. Now that whole situation is actually handled with very much care, and Ben basically saves the day as he's sent back to world, but doing that whole treasury or that whole pretty much travel, let's just say Ben is going to be out of the picture for a little bit, but not too much. He'll still be in part 3. He'll still be in part 4, but I'm going to leave it off here, guys. And same thing happens at the end of episode 2. The Samson brothers leave and they escape. They get out of here as fast as possible, and basically they win. After that, we get switched to them pretty much dipping out of there like hot cheese on a whiskey pot as they get out of there and they basically are safe. Now I'm gonna leave it out here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. I hope you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.